Hi there, everybody. Welcome to kind of I guess you'd call it an emergency episode of the Cloud-Based Mayhem. I got a voice memo 2 days ago from Chrigel, who was out training. I thought that was kind of cool that he left me a voice memo when he was training. But on this whole raging safety debate that's going on online, if you're paying attention to the socials, which hopefully you aren't, just in generally, I think that's better for our health, our mental health. But there's been a pretty loud calling for resignations across civil, and this all came out of the fatal accident down at the Worlds in Brazil. And we were planning on doing a whole show on just that with the various voices from the civil side and from the athlete-pilot side. And without going into too many of my opinions here, because I have a lot, it was great because Chrigel just reached out and said, "Hey, I've got some opinions on it." Well, those opinions will be better than mine. And Chrigel, everybody knows Chrigel and his background and highly respects his opinions. So without giving you too much here it is. Here's Chrigel's thoughts on what's going down in the safety debate and potentially some solutions and some ways forward. Enjoy. Chrigel, great to get you back on the show, and I'm glad you left me that voicemail as you were training. I thought that was pretty fun. Could hear that you were hiking up something pretty hard, and you have some thoughts about this kind of safety debate. Why don't we start with what's happening? You've seen it just like I have, but what's going on in the social media world, and what is this debate? And then we'll dive into your thoughts on safety and where we should go from here.
Yeah, hi Gavin. Thanks to having you. I made many thoughts about the discussions I saw in social media and in the paragliding world. And for sure I was thinking about, but I was not coming to a clear answer because I think it's so many topics that we can discuss. And I just have 20 years experience in competition, in paragliding, also in developing and thinking in different ways. And yeah, it's nice that you have some questions about.
Yeah, you're the first thing that I thought when you left me the kind of voice memo the other day was that we kind of go in waves with this. The Peter accidents and really was what led to the banning of the open class and the development of the CCC class. And so, it kind of goes in these waves of safety and then back to performance. Talk about that, the history of that. And obviously we're in the wave right now of safety.
Yeah, that's true. When I started paragliding in 98, there was, I think the most dangerous part was over because the competition wings in 95 and 96 was really danger. And then it go back to more safety, and it goes also to more light, and then it becomes more safe. And I was quite lucky to become a pilot in this period where the gliders was quite okay. I remember we had glider where the top speed was more than 75, 80 in 2008-9. And then with the new concept of the shark nose, the glider was even more rigid and fast. And then we got new rules. I think it was a hard step to accept this, but the rule became friendly and everybody was agreed that the rule to have a CCC class was important to have. It reduced the top speed for sure, but it also reduced the safety, the accidents. And finally, we have gliders which are again really rigid and fast, and in strong conditions. It's always for me a bit stressful to handle with fear and good feeling, and that's why I think the discussions are quite quite okay to have more easy gliders in competition, because in fact we do a game in the air, we fly competition, but the gliders doesn't matter how good performance we have. I think in the other way, to have record flights, cross-country record flights or speed records, we need good performance, but in competition, when you fly clear task, the performance is not that important. And that's why it's a good thought to have easier gliders. In these years, I see that the new category of sea gliders, they work quite good as long as they fly. But in the end, it's a two-liner. If we have big collapses, for sure you have to handle it. You have to be good as a comp pilot. That means the category C, it's not a really true category. But if you do a lot of hours with these gliders and you go step by step faster, you can learn to handle it. But in the end, there is still a paragliding sport, and we have to accept that it's a really dangerous sport, or it can be really dangerous quickly after the start. And this means also, we have to be prepared for it. Finally, I not have a clear answer and solution, but to have some thoughts, it's always good.
Again, going back to your message that you sent me when you were training, you had a kind of an interesting breakdown of when you are flying competitions, 10% were this, 40% was this, 50% was this. Break that down for me again.
Yeah, this means that when I fly, I get a feeling, depends of the conditions. And I think with the CCC glider, I feel 40% of the time I feel a bit stressed. 50% of the time I feel okay. I mean, during transitions, during terminaling or whatever. But 10% of the time I'm really stressed. I really feel that I'm on the limit of my skills, of my feeling, and of fun. And I don't know how you feel on a comp wing, but for sure it's more intense in the Alps. Maybe it's 15-20% I'm get really at the limit, while in flatland maybe it's 2 or 5%. But I think to have more fun and resources for the competition, we have to reduce this stressful percentage of the airtime.
You and I have similar thoughts, I think, when it comes to, there's a lot of comparisons we can make to motocross, mountain biking, downhill mountain biking, F1, these sports that are really visible, much more visible than paragliding. I don't know a great deal about those sports, but I know that these are very professional athletes at the top end. They take the training very seriously. They take the risk very seriously. They're not ignoring certain things. They don't just jump in an F1 car on race day. There's a lot of training that goes into what they're doing. When this debate first went out, because I'm an organizer as well, and a meet director, and I put on these competitions, I was quite sensitive to it because I know how much goes into it. And Martin Scheel and I both share, I know, similar thoughts on competition, is that the trend for the last bunch of years has been to put more and more of the onus on the organizer and not on the pilot. And he gave a really good talk at the World Cup in Grindelwald, where you and I were, that he feels strongly that this is the wrong direction of things, that because a task is set and because the meet is on, that a pilot just blanks out on their own personal safety and, okay, I'm going to go race. We all know that in every discipline, when you go from recreation to competition, you're going to take more risks. Your ego is involved. You're racing. You're going to take more risks automatically. But that that is being pushed more onto the meet organizer, in this case, Civil. When I first saw that, I really, personally, I didn't like it. I really feel like Martin's onto something here, that, we as pilots have to always, we're the pilot in command. We have to be the ones responsible. You had some thoughts about training, that, in competitions, often these pilots just show up for the comp, fly for their CCC glider, go home, pack it away till the next comp.
Yeah, that's the truth. And I see different topics. There is what you say about the other sports. There is a hard selection in PWC and in World Championship. We have selection, but it's quite easy to go there without enough experience. And there, to have better selections, maybe less athletes in the front, can be different. And then the other problem we have, an athlete, a human in competition, it's quite stupid. So this is what I know from myself, that in a hard competition, I'm not myself anymore. And if I have checklists, or in a team, in a competition like X-Alps, I have a team that can lead me, that can stop me. But in a flying competition, normally, as once you stay in the air, you're your own boss, and then human in competition are stupid. Comes into play in the solutions. And this is a really big problem we have in all sports, but especially in paragliding competition.
If you could make a difference today in selection, what would be the criteria, for, say, flying, even just flying a CCC glider in competition? Would it be a certain amount of hours of SIV? Would it be, what would you suggest?
Yeah, for sure. You need more practice on your gear. It's not only the gliders, it's also the harnesses, instruments, for example. There is less visibility of the instruments at the new harnesses. There is different rescue systems. Cross rescue, Rogallo, cutaway, whatever. You have different systems, and you have to train this. To do 2 or 3 times in a year a training, or especially before a competition, you do a training with your gear. It's really recommended. And for example, to fly a full stall, to reopen a cravat after collapse, it's, I think, a need to do. It gives me a better feeling. I'm honest, I'm not do all flights full stall, but I do some sessions where I try to refresh my good feelings to be ready and prepared for a competition. But to be honest, on a CCC glider, it's not that easy like on a C or D glider. And so the border to do it, to practice more, it's even harder. And it gives me an extra, I need an extra day to do this. I need a place over the lake. I need organization. But I think to be professional, or to be a good competition pilot, I have to do this, especially before the comps. And then take off in strong wind conditions, take off in backwind conditions, and then the hours, to fly the hours in the air, to be friendly with the speed system, with the feeling you get, to be comfortable, and then you can go into a competition. And how you do the selection, everybody have to do by own at the moment, but I think maybe for the future it needs rules to bring the experience and the training into a competition.
Do you think that, so I know a trigger point for what is happening right now on social media was there was a very bad accident at the Worlds down in Brazil. There were a lot more accidents at the last Worlds in France. There was no deaths, but a lot of reserves, quite a few injuries, a lot of incidents. There was at the super final and DeSantis. But after hearing from you just a couple days ago before we did this show, I was speaking to Ed Ewing at XCMag, and I might have this number slightly wrong. It's either 37 or 39. And statistics in our sport are, it's not like jumbo jets and the FAA. We're really battling trying to get proper data on accidents, but both from competitions, and also recreationally. But he thought that in Switzerland this year, so either 25 or 24, I'm not sure what calendar year, but there was 39 deaths in the sport, and I believe all of them were recreational. There was one or two, I can't remember, but they were in competition. But I feel like that gets lost in this discussion, that because in competitions they're more public, I guess you will. There's more people watching. There's more people there, and it's a big deal, and it should be a big deal. I mean, loss of life or a big accident is not something we should just gloss over. But it's a wicked dangerous sport, just period. And I think we lose that side. I feel like that's getting lost in this discussion right now. That not that because there were so many deaths in Switzerland, and it was about the same number in France, I understand. And that's not unusual. That's not an unusual number. It's about what it is. And it's not a safe sport. And so I feel like people kind of put that under the rug sometimes.
Yeah, I think it starts still quite early in the flight school. In the flight school, you get the feeling paragliding is the safest sport in the world, and it's not true, because after 2 seconds you are quite high and it can be dangerous. And I think if you start, mountaineering, you learn to wear a helmet because it's really dangerous to get rockfall, for example. And therefore maybe you learn to fly with a wrong mindset. And then it goes on with the competitions. Then maybe there is a good competition, then you get a good feeling, and it goes on and on until something happen. And when I watch back the last years, we always had years with more and some years with less or no accidents. And I don't know why, but over the past, it was always more and less. And always when we had a lot of accidents, athletes and organizers start to think about safety. And everybody's crying about safety. And in the years we not have so much accidents, everybody is crying about efficiency in the gliders, in the equipment. And nobody looks for safety. And then it goes up and down like this. And it was, even when I start paragliding, some good pilots explain me this phenomenon. And I can, look back the 20 years, and it was always a bit up and down like this. And now, this year was a really bad year with a lot of accidents, bad accidents. And it's clear that people ask for more safety. And I think it's good to think about, and I think to get new rules which leads the stupid athletes, myself include, in competitions.
What would be some of the things you would focus on? What are you seeing that are contributing to this worst change recently?
Yeah, that's always a good question. There is no clear solution. If we have the feeling the organizer have to bring more safety, the organizers will organize less competitions. They will organize competitions in area where it's quite safe, means boring. And finally, we have rules, too many rules, which says if it's a bit cloudy, we don't fly. It means we have only competition in very boring conditions, and then you have to go with this, or you lose it, or you leave it. And maybe it's a good way, because we need more safety. But on the other side, I think we can have more talk about this safety topics, and finally to bring more training and more rules for the equipment, what makes the sport more safe. But it needs time. We as athletes, we have to respect these rules and to train with these rules, to have the confidence and the fun back in competition.
Yeah, I mean, I as a meet organizer, but also as a pilot who loves to compete, there was a lot of talk this year in the Red Bull X Alps that it's too dangerous. It's too windy. It's too much fern. It's Ferdy should shut down the day. They should have a certain parameter, and then you close the day. And I just violently am opposed to this, because again, comparing to these other sports that are really dangerous, there doesn't seem to be this, oh my God, we need to shut everything down, somebody died. I'm not trying to be callous about death, but if we start operating like that, then like you said, we only fly in the perfect conditions, boring. We only fly the perfect tasks, boring. You, Patrick, there are people who on day 2 can perfectly handle those kind of conditions in a, I'm using finger quotes here, in a safe way. You've trained for it. That's, you're I talked to Simone after about the podcast, and he felt like that day was perfectly within his realm. He it wasn't perfect. It wasn't great. But he had trained for that. And so, that doesn't just, what that says is maybe not all 32 in the race should be flying that day, but it should be up to them. It should never be up to Ferdy. Where do we start and stop with these parameters? And, this whole thing that, but they're setting an example for everybody else. That's ridiculous. I don't watch you fly and go, yeah, okay, that's what I can do that. Gavin McClure can do that. No, I can't. I'm not Chrigel. I can't do that. So that would be stupid. So yeah, I think that, again, from a meet organizing standpoint, we can't for sure know that the weather is going to be what's on the forecast. And so the task committee is inevitably going to get it wrong sometimes. Hopefully not. They're good and they're professional and they've made a lot of tasks. I mean, I've been on the task committee down in Mexico for 10 years running. Sometimes we goof it up. Sometimes we don't necessarily nail it, and we have one leg of a task that's into too much wind, and that can be dangerous. But is that the task committee's fault? Is it, or is it the pilot's responsibility to fly it in a safe way, or not fly it? That this is beyond my ability. I'm going to go land. I've said a lot there, but thoughts?
I see that too many rules are too complicated in this way, but I think there is a one way in communication. That means if they do a briefing and speak about safety, and pilots, that they have to make all the decisions by them own, and then they give penalties for some parts of day that was not dangerous, then it starts to be really tricky to understand and to respect the things. So if you speak before a competition what it's okay and where is to stop, I think then you can be prepared. But as long you like to do the hardest adventure race, then it's difficult to stop the tasks. It's a bit the similar part in cross country competition when you speak about level 1, 2, 3. And as long you can speak in the radio, it's level 1. Some of the good pilots can speak about level 2, but when it's level 3, the pilots are not able to communicate anymore, for example. And I see that there can be a better, I think the pilot is not the right to be in a committee, but maybe some marshals, a marshal committee. That means pilots in the air or in the competition, but they are not taking part in the competition, they can take clear decisions. Then they can, of course, communicate, because they can realize danger part, and then they can react on it. And sometimes it was easy to see something, but because I was a pilot in the competition, I was not responsible to react, or I not feel responsible. And with the committee, what have a good effect can be a next solution.
They changed the Flymaster trackers. You used to just have to call the levels on the radio. Now you can do it basically anonymously. I mean, the scorekeeper would know, but because you're right, there's been this. It's a cultural thing. People don't want to call level 3. You've got to land if you call level 3, but also there's funny stuff there. There's shame, or I don't want to be the one to do it, and so now you can just press a button. This is harder on the subs because you can't get to your instruments, but you if you can get to the little device that they give you before going out on the comp, it's kind of nice. You can just hit level 1, level 2, or level 3, and it provides all the information, your altitude and position, everything else. So that there are things like that I really think are really good moves forward. That's somebody's thought about that. Okay, this is a problem we have in our culture. It's very hard to change a culture, but you can give somebody a different instrument, and okay, well, then there's no shame. I can just press the button.
That's true.
More on the pilot side of things, you mentioned too that to really critique an organizer, you should organize a comp and see what it's like.
Yeah, I also organized some competitions, and you want to do it as good as possible. You have the challenge to make it an interesting task, but also a safe one. And yeah, you know how it works. You try to do it as good as possible, and you spend a lot of time, passion, and then if the weather is good and everybody is safe back, it's a really good feeling. And if something happened, you never know if you do a mistake or there was a unlucky place. And I think in one way it's good to have the rules to keep on it, or to go with a clear structure. But in the other side, you also have to accept that you do a competition outside with the weather they can change, and maybe to speak more about this with the athletes, it will be also important that the athletes are more involved in the problems. And I think as soon every athlete has to do his own task, they understand better what's the problem for organizer. And it's always for me. I mean, when I start the competition, I was 16, and I was really happy to go there on a place where everything was organized. There was a shuttle, there was a place, there was a marshal. They say, okay, window is open, everybody is fine. And then that, or you get the feeling that you are on a place where nothing can happen. And maybe if we turn in the other way, that the organizers say, okay, welcome to a horrible race. The weather it's horrible, turbulent. We go up because we try. I mean, this way can be
right.
More that
honest.
Athletes understand better what they do. And in the end, we have to be clear and honest to have a race in the air where everything can happen. And if you start a competition with this focus, it means you have to train more. You have to think more about problems and to be prepared for the problems. And in the end, if you start as an athlete, you know better if you want to do this or not, if you take this risk or not. And if you want to do it, you also get the confidence and the fun, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think it's often, I have found since I started organizing and meet directing, it's a hard balance to find. My objective is always to get everybody in the air, as much as I can. If the task committee and weather crew feel like we've got a window, then I want to give it to them. Like Martin did. I think it was the second task in Switzerland. It was raining all morning, and we had this little tiny pop, and we went and had a really fun little mini task. So I always feel like that's the goal. And if what I really worry about when I see this kind of attack on the organizations is there's not that many people willing to do it. There is really no money in it. It's a passion project for everybody. And I think if you press too hard on safe, then you just never have tasks. It's only they're only going to happen on the perfect days, and a lot of the fun gets pulled out of it. Then for me, those days are fun. The perfect days are great, but it's the days that are kind of on the edge or tricky or technical or stable. These are the ones we remember.
Yeah, there is, for example, in F1, in the rain, you have to put wheels on with profile, rain wheels. Yeah. And maybe on some days when you can see that the conditions are tricky, or you go into a area like the mountains, the organizer have to say, okay, today we fly with B-wings. And if you go out in flatland, and the day is really good, no wind, you can say, okay, CCC wings are okay. But that means you need more than one gear. But in the end, it's the organizer. They give the rules and they say what you have to do. And as I say, I don't know the perfect solution, but in the end, we have to be more. We have to realize better what we do as a pilot.
Chrigel, we've covered a lot of ground. Lastly, I want to finish on, you had some thoughts about the gear side of things too. You've been a designer, developer for Advance for a long time. Your brother is as well. I had a great conversation with him, by the way, and Neeson, as you guys raced through, I spent a lot of time with your brother. We had a blast. But what... anything to say on the gear side of things? Because we talked a little bit about the open class and then the CCC, which seemed to be a very good move. But anything else? You mentioned harnesses.
Yeah, in the end, we have to develop new stuff. Manufacturer will do. Yeah, they will do business and they develop new gear. And I was really surprised in the last years how they can do progress in performance, in safety, in handling, in weight. But in the other side, they push really in a efficiency in a direction where the gear is efficient. What means also that we have to accept some compromises. I mean, the new harnesses, they have quite a small back protection, for example. I can see in hike and fly the harnesses with back protection with air. Sometimes athletes in a hurry, they don't blow it really ready before the start. They say they do it in the air, but you never know. In the end, they can cheat quite easy their own safety. And if there is a rule which make the gear more safe, and the rule is for everybody, that means every athlete it's more safe, and there is no one with disadvantage. But if everybody needs the high performance product, everybody have a disadvantage in safety, and no one have an advantage in performance. And this is
because they're all flying the same thing.
This is a stupid way, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this was a big problem with hang gliding as well, right? It was. I'm not a hang glider, but I understand this was the same thing. And they kept making these incremental changes in performance, which were a lot more expensive. You kind of had to have that piece of equipment to compete. Otherwise you couldn't compete. And it whittles it down until very, very few people can afford it and use the equipment.
That's right. Yeah. And finally, I think to have a gear which is easy and makes fun, and if it's similar to the others, I think then we have a bigger community. I mean, to be honest, at the moment there are two manufacturers. They lead the competition in cross country competitions. And when I was fresh in competition, there was 20 manufacturer with her teams and developing stuff, and it gives a lot of motivation in the groups. And now there is this is gone. There is also almost no developing in generally, and yeah, this I can see as a big difference compared to before. In hike and fly, yeah, it's more. They are 6-7 manufacturer. They do specifics equipment, but they also go into a way which makes the gliders more complicated, more heavy, to get a bit more performance. And for sure, it's a normal way, but without rules, we go soon with the high performance D gliders, which are a bit more heavy, and the harnesses are more heavy, more complicated. I think also more unsafe. And it means I, as an athlete, I have to train even more. I not say I go with the easy equipment because I will do competition, but I know I have to train more, even more harder to get a good feeling.
So if I could summarize, in general, athletes aren't training enough, especially at the higher levels. If you're going to fly a CCC wing or a comp glider or even a D, or now two liners that are Cs, you need to be spending some time over the water, doing some SIV, making sure you're current, making sure you know your gear. There's some things we could do on the gear side of things, potentially marshals, as a safety committee, so that they don't have anything invested in the competition, but they're up flying with everybody. So you've got more skilled eyes in the air that can be helping the meet director on the ground. Go easy on the organizers. But if there's something that can be done in the rules that help safety, we should definitely take a look at them. Am I missing anything?
Yeah, maybe two things. One point is for people that listen to understand the two-line glider problem. There is more stability, more safety in flight as long they fly, but as soon they collapse, it means it needs more turbulences, it needs more disbalance, and then it collapses even more aggressive. And if you have a good reaction, you can handle it quite well, but it needs experience. And it's not really similar to the SVI trainings over the lake to get big collapses in full speed in the air. And then if you miss the reaction, if you are too slow in the reaction on the brake, you get big problems normally because the two-liner can get bigger cravats with the higher pressure. They get more dynamic, and so normally the collapses are a bit more difficult to handle than on a three-line glider. And as higher the aspect ratio, as more power and stronger feeling you get, it means to fly in a strong terminal. I not speak about 2-3 meter, I speak about 8 to 10 meter. Then you get a too extreme feeling, what means it's not fun anymore. And to handle a 10 meter terminal, it needs a lot of practice. Sometimes I feel like a beginner, but I think I can handle it quite well. But I do my 150 hours on a two-liner in a year, 300 hours on a normal year. I did in the last 20 years. So it's a bit of experience. And the other side, the second point, I think it's also important to watch forward, to not stop clearly the development. It needs new products, so we have to focus on new products, but to find solutions together. That means what I really hope for the future, that there is a bigger conversation between top pilots, competition pilots, athletes, and manufacturer. I know there is conversations, but sometimes not enough. And I also like to have a better conversation between compilots and organizers to get a better feeling from each other. What we can improve, what are the problems, and together we become more strong. At the moment, I was in some pilot committees. I was also in development, but sometimes I get the feeling the other part of the of the conversation, it's quite sure what they do, and they not really gets the message we send. And that's why I hope that we can get it better in the future.
Good stuff. Chrigel, appreciate it. Thank you for sharing all of this. It's timely. This debate is raging pretty hard right now on social media, which is in some ways kind of disheartening to see, but hopefully it will lead to good things. But thanks for sharing your thoughts. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks to talk with you, Gavin. All the best as an athlete and an organizer, and see you soon.
See you soon, bud. If you find the Cloud-Based Mayhem valuable, you can support it in a lot of different ways. You can give us a rating on iTunes or Stitcher, or however you get your podcast. That goes a long ways and helps spread the word. You can blog about it on your own website or share it on social media. You can talk about it on the way up to launch with your pilot friends. I know a lot of interesting conversations have happened that way. And of course, you can support us financially. This show does take a lot of time, a lot of editing, a lot of storage and music and all kinds of behind the scenes cost. So if you can support us financially, all we've ever asked for is $1 a show. And you can do that through a one-time donation through PayPal, or you can set up a subscription service that charges you for each show that comes out. We put a new show out every 2 weeks. So for example, if you did $1 a show and every 2 weeks, it'd be about $25 a year. So way cheaper than a magazine subscription, and it makes all of this possible. I do not want to fund this show with advertising or sponsors. We get asked about that pretty frequently, but for a whole bunch of different reasons, which I've said many times on the show, I don't want to do that. I don't like having that stuff at the front of the show. And I also want you to know that these are authentic conversations with real people, and these are just our opinions, but our opinions are not being skewed by sponsors or advertising dollars. I think that's a pretty toxic business model. So I hope you dig that. You can support us. If you go to cloudbasedmayhem.com, you can find the places to support. You can do it through patreon.com/cloudbasedmayhem. If you want a recurring subscription, you can also do that directly through the website. We've tried to make it really easy, and that will give you access to all the bonus material, little video casts that we do and extra little nuggets that we find in conversations that don't make it into the main show, but we feel like you should hear. We don't put any of that behind a paywall. If you can't afford to support us, then just let me know and I'll set you up with an account. Of course, that'll be lifetime, and hopefully you're being in a position someday to be able to support us. But you'll find all that on the website. All of you who have supported us or even joined our newsletter or bought Cloud-Based Mayhem merchandise, t-shirts or hats or anything, you should be all set up. You should have an account, and you should be able to access all that bonus material now. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate your support, and we'll see you on the next show. Thank you.